Gospel, chapter number 1, verses 1 through 14.
Awesome.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. This man came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which gives light to every man who comes into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh, and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Father, we ask you, add your blessing to this reading of your word. We ask it in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. For some rather unusual and strange and very peculiar reason, which I will never understand, Terry requested this song. And she wanted me to sing it, and I don't know why, because she's never heard me sing. And I can't carry a tune in the bucket,
Oh, yes, it can.
but I can carry it in a wash tub. It still slops over the side and stuff. The song that we're going to sing tonight, I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day, is a very, very powerful song when you know the story behind it. What we have today is a sanitized version of that original song. One of America's best known poets, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, who was born in 1807, which is an important point of history when you know what's going on here. He died in 1882, and he contributed greatly to the wealth of carols sung each Christmas season. And when he composed the words to I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day on December 25th, 1864, it carried a lot of meaning with it. The carol was originally a poem called Christmas Bells, containing 7 stanzas. We are going to sing all 7 stanzas tonight. And when you hear those, stanzas 4 and 5 that we sing are left out, and you probably never heard them before. But they really give context to the stanza 6, the words that are in it, and to what is going on in the song here. But they were omitted because they contain references to the American Civil War. Thus, when they took those out, it gave rise to the present form that we sing all the time now. When Longfellow penned the words to his poem, America was still months away from Lee's surrender to Grant at Appomattox Courthouse on April 9, 1865. And his poem reflected, well, the prior years of a war of great despair and tremendous loss that had been going on. Remember, I said that he was born in 1807. That gives history to himself and to a lot of people that were alive at that time that would have remembered the British and the War of 1812, and 1813 actually, but in the War of 1812, they invaded the United States at that time, and they took Washington, D.C., and they burned it. And so that's part of the living history of people in D.C. at this very time that he has written this song here. And so they know what's going on, and if you know the history of the Civil War, just a few months prior to him writing this very thing, Jubal Early, who was a Confederate general, led the Army of the Shenandoah Valley into Maryland, and actually for 2 days skirmished outside the city of D.C., Washington, D.C., and they could hear the gunfire and the cannons roaring just a few months before he writes this very thing here. Well, as with any composition that touches the heart of the hearer, I heard the bells on Christmas Day flowed from the experience of Longfellow involving the tragic death of his wife Fanny and the crippling injury of his son Charles from war wounds. Henry married Frances Appleton on July 13, 1843, and they settled down in the historic Craigie House overlooking the Charles River in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They were blessed with the birth of their first child, Charles, on June 9, 1844, and eventually the Longfellow household numbered 5 children: Charles, Ernest, Alice, Edith, and Allegra. Tragedy struck both the nation and the Longfellow family in 1861. Confederate General Pierre G.T. Beauregard fired the opening salvos of the American Civil War on April 12th, and Fanny Longfellow was fatally burned in an accident in the library of the Craigie House on July 10th. The day before the accident, Fanny Longfellow recorded in her journal, "We are all sighing for the good sea breeze instead of this stifling land one filled with dust. Poor Allegra is very droopy with heat, and Edie has to get her hair in a net to free her neck from the weight." After trimming some of the 7-year-old Edith's beautiful curls, Fanny decided to preserve the clippings in sealing wax. Mounting a bar of sealing wax with a candle, a few drops fell unnoticed upon her dress. The longed for sea breeze gusted through the window, igniting the light material of Fanny's dress, immediately wrapping her in flames. In her attempt to protect Edith and Allegra, she ran to Henry's study in the next room, where Henry frantically attempted to extinguish the flames with a nearby but undersized throw rug. Failing to stop the fire with the rug, he tried to smother the flames by throwing his arms around Francis, severely burning his face, arms, and hands. Fanny Longfellow died the next morning. Too ill from his own burns and grief, Henry did not attend her funeral. Incidentally, if you have ever seen a picture of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, his trademark beard rose from the fact of that accident. He could no longer shave after that. The first Christmas after Fanny's death, Longfellow wrote, "How inexpressibly sad are all holidays." A year after the incident, he wrote, "I can make no record of these days. Better leave them wrapped in silence. Perhaps someday will give me peace." Longfellow's journal entry for December 25th, 1862 reads, "A Merry Christmas, say the children, but that is no more for me." Almost a year later, young Longfellow received the word that his oldest son Charles, a lieutenant in the Army of the Potomac, had been severely wounded, with a bullet passing through his shoulder blades and taking off one of his spinal processes. The Christmas of 1863 was silent in Longfellow's journey. Finally, on Christmas Day of 1864, he wrote the words of the song, "Christmas Bells." As you see the words and hear, please listen to the anguish of his soul, but at the same time, the hope he shares at the very end, because this is the soul of his heart. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and mild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to men. For now as the day had come, the belfries of all Christendom had rolled along trumpets clap, the curses loud, the cannon thundered in the south, and with the sound the carols clap of peace on earth, goodwill to men. It was as if an earthquake rent the hearthstones of a continent, and made forlorn the household of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And in despair I bowed my head, there is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and God's the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then peal the bells more loud and deep, God is not dead, nor doth he sleep, the wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. With peace on earth, goodwill to men.
Holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of the dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and never pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrilling hope, the weary world rejoices, for wonder breaks a new and glorious dawn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices. Oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. Oh, night divine, oh, night divine. Truly he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is a brother. In his name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymn of joy and glory of great joy. Oh, and is all praise his holy name. Christ is the Lord. Oh, praise his holy name. His power and glory forevermore proclaim. His power and glory evermore proclaim. For night divine, oh, night divine.
Amen.
O come, Emmanuel.
to free your captive